Fuck you! Oh god, what's happening? Alright. This is fine. Oh, I seem to have... Oh, there, we're back. Alright. What the fuck is happening? What's up, YouTube? Demi here with another build guide. So this is a Flicker Strike Inquisitor, level 92, utilizing a really fun interaction between the Golden Rule and the Red Trail. So the Golden Rule says any bleed that you inflict is reflected to us, right? So that means we're basically always bleeding as long as we have a fair amount of chance to bleed on our main hand, which we have, I think I'll have like 20% when I equip everything. And then these boots give you gain a frenzy charge on hit while bleeding, the Red Trail and the Golden Rule, right? It's dumb. So every time that you hit anything with these two on, if you bleed that something, you get the bleed as well, and then it just translates into you bleeding everything all the time. I already have a different one equipped, but let me just show you a map real quick. We got a T16 Elder Underground Sea, 79% more monster life. I don't know, people have been asking me to make a Flicker build for a long time. This would work on a Champion, a Slayer, a Scion, Pathfinder, Raider, whatever you really want. But it's just really, really dumb. I can barely control the character, and it's beautiful. As you can see, I'm just basically always bleeding, so that every time I hit anything, I get a frenzy, which means that I can sustain Flicker Strike, because Flicker Strike consumes a frenzy, and then it has a little bit of a cooldown, unless you have another frenzy charge, which then it just overrides the cooldown, and you can just flicker forever. This character has the added benefit of being able to just swap in, like, Consecrated Path if you wanted to do actual controlled stuff, or you could swap in Blade Flurry for single target situations if you wanted, like for bossing, if you needed to do like an Elder run or something, or Shaper run, whatever. But it's pretty good at mapping. I did some delving with it as well. It does pretty well in delves. Of course, you have the danger of the fact that sometimes multi-strike just takes you into the middle of nowhere and throws you into the darkness alone and afraid. But that's okay. You got Flicker Strike, and that's all that matters. There, of course, is a very obvious danger here where I don't have a bleed flask, because if I disable my bleeding, I can't keep generating frenzies. So sometimes we get bled out by enemies, and that's kind of a problem. But to deal with the corrupting blood aspect, I have a cannot be inflicted with corrupting blood jewel on my tree. Right there, right? So that doesn't happen anymore, which means we can just kind of continue mapping as normal. And as you can see, the single target is respectable. I did a Chayula. I'm not even MFing. Alright, let's see how this goes. I can say that went better than expected. Without any real issues. What else did we do with this? I did Shaper with the Blade Flurry swap, which is pretty easy. I'll show you that swap once we get into the gem links, but there's your map clear. If you have a really good layout map, like a linear map, you could just go around the whole thing in like a second. It's so stupid. Oops, my bad. Let's go ahead and get into the core concepts of the character. Your skill tree and your ascendancy and whatnot. I chose this because I had a level 92 Templar that had an open respec. You could do, again, anything. You could do Templar, you could do Berserker if you wanted, you could do Juggernaut, Chieftain, Slayer, Champion, Gladiator would work, a Raider. You could even do something weird like a Trickster or an Elementalist if you wanted to stretch the tree enough. But basically, the reason that I took Inquisitor is because we get this right here. Inevitable Judgment. Critical strikes ignore enemy monster resist, which means we don't have to worry about Ellie penetration with anything, even though I have a fair amount of pen through some stuff, right? It doesn't matter. If we crit, they have 0% resist, so instead of me having 10, they just have 0. Which is really, really strong, especially against things like Shaper and whatnot, where they have 40% resist around the board, basically. It puts them at 0. It's a huge amount of damage, and then everything else is just a bunch of crit, Ellie damage, multi, all that good stuff. This is a 16% more multiplier to enemies near us than a less damage taken multiplier, which is pretty good. And over here we got attack speed, attack damage if you've attacked recently, so that's good. But yeah, we take a bunch of damage nodes, some life nodes, some generic fizz, all res, crit, you know, the skill tree is a lot of like melee, crit, multi stuff, right? And life nodes, basically. Down here we take Razor's Edge because we actually need these chance to bleed nodes, so we have 25% chance to cause bleeding. 25% right there. That's generally enough to have infinite frenzies throughout the mapping process, but if you're having issues with that, then you can just equip chance to bleed. and put that up to 50% chance to cause bleed. You can also get chance to cause bleed on jewels if you're struggling with it, but I haven't noticed any problems with it even on single target situations. Take the one-handed nodes here, go into more life nodes, could take some Scion life jewel sockets. We'll go over the jewels in a minute. All these life nodes, all these attack speed nodes. We have a shield. You can do this as a dual wield variant. It's very minimal change to the skill tree, right? You just take this side instead of this side. And then instead of having a shield with Lycosidé, you can have 2 foils with hits can't be evaded on them because we can multi-mod those in League pretty easily. More life nodes, more frenzies. Again, frenzy charges we have up all the time, so taking these is really good free damage. I got a life leech node here. I got a mana leech node here. This is an interesting interaction. So I have 20% conversion here, and more life. Bottom half of the sword nodes for all that crit multi juiciness. And so I need to explain the conversion. So remember that we inflict any bleed that we inflict on enemies, we also inflict on ourselves because of the golden rule red trail. Which means that you don't want to deal very much fizz damage or you will kill yourself with the bleed. So what we did is I converted 99% of my physical damage from Flicker Strike into elemental or cold damage through a couple different ways. I have 20% here. I have 50% here. That puts me at 70%. And then I have a Watcher's Eye that I divine to 29%. It goes from 25 to 40 on that. So somewhere in that range to get it to as close to 99% conversion as possible. As you can see, I have 23 to 42 fizz. You only need to have 1 to 2. 1 to 1 would be enough to inflict a bleed. That bleed would do basically 0 damage, but it's enough to generate the frenzy charges to make sure that you have them for Flicker Strike. It's really weird. There's a couple different ways to go about it. You could use Fizz Delighting, which is 50 plus a 40% Watcher's Eye, puts you to 90. 10% is quite a bit though. You could also do a 50% Gloves pairing, and then like a 40% Watcher's Eye, or you could take these 2 nodes for 40% instead of the Watcher's Eye entirely, just use the gem and the 40%. I don't know, any combination of which you can get to the closest to 99% as possible. Just make sure you don't go to 100%, because if you deal no physical damage, it will not inflict bleeds and you don't have any Flicker Strike stuff. But yeah, as for the jewels, as I said, Watcher's Eye with conversion. If you have base crit conversion, great, but that's a couple 100x usually, so don't worry about it if you don't have it. All the other jewels are pretty basic. You just want like a bunch of crit multi, one-handed with swords, with melee weapons, melee crit multi, global crit multi, phase damage, attack speed, you know, tons of good stuff like that. If you're using a shield, get with shield as well if you can. Otherwise, then you can use dual wielding. But all of my jewels are pretty similar. Just make sure that you have a golden rule, which is like 10 chaos, and red trails, which are like 20 chaos or something like that. They're pretty cheap. As for the, what else do I need? Pantheons, bandits, kill all, or take a lyra, totally up to you. As for Pantheon, I have these 2 because of the fizz reduction. In case my bleeds were dealing too much damage, what they were at the beginning, because I only had 90% conversion, I took these. But you could take stun, you could take reduce reflect, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. These don't matter, Pantheons or whatever. Let's get into the gear then. So we have Lycosidé, which is hits can't be evaded globally for our attacks, which gives me 100% accuracy, so I don't have to worry about chance to hit anymore. I just have 100% chance to hit all the time. If you're a champion, you get this by taunting enemies or intimidating enemies, one of those 2. And if you have a multi-modded hits can't be evaded sword, then you get that anyway as well. You could use another one of those, right? We've mentioned that. As for your sword, you're going to want the highest physical DPS sword you can get as possible. Right now, it's pretty easy to multi-mod yourself into a 400 DPS sword. I'll include a clip of me doing that here. You just go for hybrid fizz when you're alt spamming, and then you multi-mod it out, or flat fizz, one of those 2. That's T3 hybrid, that'll work. So now I need to annul both suffixes. Just like that. Multi-mod. $394 PDPS and it divines higher. There you go. As for the rest of the gear, we got, let's see, rings. I have steel rings with wed, life resist, lots of damage basically. Same as the other ring, wed, life resist. Flat fizz is great. You can go for opal rings here. You could go for like an assassin's mark on hit ring. You can go for warlord's mark on hit ring. It really doesn't matter. You just want a bunch of damage to your attacks. Helmet, life resist, stats if you need them. Enchantment wise, you're going to want to go for Flicker Strike damage per frenzy charge is the most damage, I think. Because we have 6, it's like, what, 9 times 6 is 56, 54? 54, I think. Math is hard. 54% damage, otherwise you can just go for flicker damage, doesn't really matter. Gloves, life resist, damage is great. Spike gloves work. If you can get some insanity gloves for your leap slam, you can use those as well, but you do not need insanity for this since we're mostly just holding flicker strike down all the time. Attack speed's great. Resist, life, flat fizz, whatever else, right? Boots, red trail. Yeah, what else could you get as an enchant? Attack and cast speed if you killed recently is good, or leech if you're struggling with leech. We don't really benefit from any of the other mods though, so one of those two. I guess you could go for regen if you wanted. I don't have it. Obviously, I haven't. I just threw this together yesterday in a couple hours, so. Glove enchant, Commandment of Fury is ideal. It's the best attack enchant. It throws your weapon out in front of you and kills everything. Amulet, go for a Shaper or Elder Amulet with as much extra damage as you can get. I have Fizz's Extra Fire, Fizz's Extra Chaos here. If you can get a Shaper with extra Cold, extra Lightning, great. And remember, all of the LE damage that we deal ignores enemy resistances as long as we crit, so that's the priority there. And the belt, if you can get a Life Recovery belt, Elder Belt, great. You don't need it. Just go for as much damage as damage, resist, life, whatever else you need on your belt. That's fine. And then the Abyssal Socket in my belt, I have multi, flat fizz, and life for swords. Nothing really crazy there. It's all pretty basic, just generic melee stuff. Like this skill tree would work for basically every melee skill with a sword. If you wanted a little bit of AoE, you could take it, but I don't have it because I'm not an AoE skill. So let's go ahead and get into the gem links. Main 6-link setup, you have Flicker Strike. Let me try to put this in order of priority. Flicker Strike, Multi-Strike, Fizz to Lightning, Melee Splash. There's your 4-link. And then after that, you can add in Melee Fizz and Weapon Elemental damage for your 5-link and your 6-link. If you're doing single target situations, I recommend that you take out the Melee Splash support, because that's like your AoE. You hit everything around the enemy that you flicker to, and then put in either Ruthless or Chance to Bleed. If you're struggling with Frenzy Generation on single target, put in Chance to Bleed. If you're not struggling and you just want straight damage, put in Ruthless. But most of the time you'll just be using Melee Splash. Like that T16 boss that we just did, that was with Melee Splash. So it doesn't matter too much. Put these back. And the rest of your links, let's see, we got a movement skill, obviously we got Leap Slam, linked to 4 to 5 faster attacks, and then, this is weird, I have it linked to Bloodlust, because my Leap Slam does not have Fizz to Lightning. It deals like 30%, wait no, what is it? 50% LE damage if I don't use Bloodlust, which means that any of the bleeds that I inflict with this, there's a lot of Fizz damage there, it'll kill me. So I have to make sure to use Bloodlust there to make sure that this can't inflict bleed. I know it's kind of weird, but it prevents me from killing myself to my own Leap Slam, which has happened a couple times. Other links, let's see, Aura setup, we have Herald of Ice linked to Curse on Hit on Assassin's Mark. So whenever we shatter an enemy, it explodes, deals a little bit of cold damage around it. That cold damage hit curses enemies with Assassin's Mark, which gives us power charges. It makes them take increased crits, increased damage from crits, and we get mana and life on kill. Great. Then I also have Hatred because it's extra cold damage. And we need that to enable our Watcher Sight conversion as well. Other links, we got a cast when damage taken, summon Lightning Golem setup with Immortal Calls for the Fizz immunity. This doesn't stop you from bleeding, it just stops you from taking damage to the bleed. So that's great. And then Lightning Golem gives us attack and cast speed. If you're struggling with crit, you can use a Ice Golem. If you just want damage, you can use a Flame Golem. You can use a Chaos Golem. Literally any Golem is fine, but I prefer Lightning Golem. And then in my boots, I have a Warchief, Vol Warchief setup for the single target situations. You drop it on the enemy bosses sometimes. You don't really need to, but it deals a ton of damage. So it's linked to Conk Effect, Melee Fizz, and LE damage with attacks. I should probably actually link this with the multiple totem support. So put multiple totems here instead of that. So Warchief, multi-totem, Conk Effect, and Melee Fizz. That'll allow you to put 2 totems at once and have 2 Vol Warchiefs and 2 regular Warchiefs out for if you want to deal single target damage. Other random links, I got a Blood Rage. Gives us attack speed, gives us frenzy charges on kill. Great, I have that link to Enhance and Portal. You don't need either of these, but Enhance gives more attack speed to the Blood Rage. It also gives more cast speed to the Portal. As you can see, it has 141% increased cast speed instead of 69. But is there anything else I need to talk about? Flasks. Flapsks. We have a Taste of Hate for extra cold damage and Fizz mitigation. We have a Diamond Flask with freeze immunity, so we can crit more often. We got a Basalt Flask with curse immunity, so that we can be even more defensive against physical damage. I also have a Lion's Roar for the more damage, and a Aziri's Promise for the even more damage. You notice a theme here among our flasks. Yeah, I don't know, it's pretty easy to throw together. I honestly didn't think this was going to work as well as it does, but it just deletes things. Obviously, I'm wearing really expensive gear. I forgot to say that at the beginning of the video. If you can't afford really expensive gear, solo self-found is fine. But yeah, this is the rebirth of Crunchy. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, the guide, whatever. It's a pretty fun build. It's really good at mapping, really good at single target situations if you proc the bleed enough. But I don't know. I've always been asked to make Flicker. The path to building will be in the description of this video, and I finally got around to it. And it's just a really fun, fast build. Still hurts my eyes to play, but it's really good. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. That will be Demi out.